what are some expectations for teamwork and collaboration at work? So teamwork is used in the workplace to complete a project and or initiative, to hit metrics and milestones. For group learning, so you might have someone that participates in individual research, and then they come back to the team and discuss the findings of their research, and they have an overall discussion, just more for knowledge transfer, right? And then training and development. So for example, myself and what I do today, which I'll get into in a little bit in a second, I might hold a training session for members of the team to give them an overview of what the process and the framework is that we use to actually apply our day-to-day work and execute on the day-to-day work that we're responsible for. So that'd be an example of how training and development could look like in the workplace. Now, what does collaboration look like? So collaboration in the workplace can entail something along the lines of brainstorming ideas, group discussions, reaching a consensus about processes or general execution, analyzing problems, and finding solutions. All right, so what does this actually look like for what you can relate to yourselves as students today? So the first thing that comes to mind, I'm sure, is like group projects, right? What does group projects actually look like? So if I'm part of a team that has been assigned to execute on a given project, whatever that project might be, right? Each of us may have a specific role within that team. That in and of itself is defined as teamwork. But how do we actually get to complete that project? Everything that I do along with my team to be able to execute on that project could entail collaboration. We might come together and decide who's going to handle which particular role within that team, right? We brainstorm ideas on how to actually execute it. We have group discussions in terms of, what are the specific points that we would like to make as part of that project. These are all general examples for where you can apply today as it relates to collaboration, right? And the same goes in the workplace. So why don't I just, Maureen, I don't know if there's any questions right now because I can't see the chat on the screen, but why don't we just take a quick second if there are any questions to address them now before I get into this a little bit further. I can't hear, sorry. Are there any questions?
Yeah, there was one in the chat.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Actually, I was asking it, do you find like the teamwork, you probably remember being in college and they'd, for class projects and things like that. Do you find it much different, like from college to professional career? Maybe there were some similarities, maybe there weren't. Just reflecting back, if you see any differences.
Yeah.
Same.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't think it's vastly different, to be honest. I mean, the context of what you're working on will be different, obviously, because you're not working on a paper, let's say, or you're not working on. I remember we were doing the if anyone participated in this class, like the capstone projects, and like you had to come up with, I guess, like a business plan, so on and so forth. So it's not something along those lines, but what you'll see, what that was helpful with, though, was actually just preparing me to be able to deal with how I use teamwork and collaboration, or how I see teamwork and collaboration applied in the workplace today. The reason why I say that is because the overall approach is still the same, right? You're still going to sit down and have brainstorming sessions. You're still going to sit down with your management and have one-on-one sessions to discuss like how your performance is throughout your career at a given job. And each company handles that differently. Speaking specifically for how it is at Bloomberg, I can say there's really not much difference in terms of how we approach teamwork and collaboration.
Question in the chat from one of the students. The question is for you, Steve. Have you had professional training provided by Bloomberg in regards to improving teamwork?
Absolutely. So for myself and the role that I'm in today, so I mentioned I'm a senior Scrum Master. So going into that role, I actually didn't have a specific certification, which there are certifications out there. And if anyone's interested, you can take a look at Scrum Alliance and the organization and what they're about. So the Scrum Alliance actually is, they have specific certifications that are dedicated to show that to provide credibility into the fact that you're actually knowledgeable of what Agile and Scrum is. And I can get into that a little bit later. So that's one example. But Bloomberg did sponsor me to be able to take those certification trainings, which allowed me to get certified in what I do today. And that helped me to instill the confidence in what I can do to be able to provide knowledge to others that are going to either work in the framework, which is what's called Scrum, right? Or to simply just be able to understand how to handle certain situations while working within that framework. Other examples that I've had are, for example, I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish and English. My family's from Nicaragua, but I'm born and raised in New York City. So one example of that is when I got hired, I was asked to help, because I work in an operations team. I was asked to help with customer support and customer service calls with Spanish speakers, right? So as part of that, they just wanted to make sure that, do I actually have the skills to convey technical terminology in Spanish? It's a little different than just, being able to talk to your parents in Spanish, for those of you who speak, or any other language, for those of you who speak multiple languages. So Bloomberg was supportive with that. They provide in-house training just to make sure that it was solid. As in addition to that, they also did the same with Italian, because at the time, coming from Santana, I did take Italian while I was over there in Italy upon my graduation from Alfred. So to help solidify my knowledge in speaking Italian, which since then has gone down, unfortunately, because I don't speak Italian as much anymore. But that's another example. They were able to actually bring in an instructor from outside the organization to provide language training to us for the few of us that did speak Italian in the workplace within that team.
Well, the question is, student. Question is, how do you compose yourself in a team that has bad communication?
Sorry, how do I compose myself?
How do you compose yourself in a team that has bad communication? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, so I think for this one, everyone's different, right? And you're going to deal with a lot of personalities, and that kind of will be, I'll touch on some of the points for like how you can address that and manage your own expectations in a couple slides. But ultimately, it comes down to patience, right? Being patient and just understanding that not everyone is going to see things your way. And for some people, that's very difficult. I did struggle with that initially, right? Because coming out of school, for especially, we have a specific mindset, and we're indoctrinated almost to think a certain way. And when you try to apply that in the workplace, especially in a company that's a lot more flexible and collaborative in the approach to how they get things done, it could be difficult, right? We think structure, process, there are specific steps that I need to execute on to be able to get something done, right? And unfortunately, it's not always the case in the workplace that you're going to be able to think through those specific steps that we've been taught to think through in school. So my suggestion and my best practice tip to the students would be, have patience, understand what's expected of you, understand in terms of working with the team itself, what the differences in personalities are. Are these people that are the members of your team, individuals that, were born and raised in the United States? And I say that, not to make it as a joke, but to be honest, because people's cultures and coming from the different countries that they come from is very different, right? So someone may come forth because they come from a certain country, they might come forth as very blunt, but that's just in their nature and their culture. So you have to learn to adapt yourself and how you communicate with them. So it might take a little bit more effort, than some of us might like, and some of us who are more introverts, might need to become more extroverts in order to be able to draw those people out, all right, or communicate with them. But ultimately, these are specific things that I found helpful for myself when communicating with those around the team, especially those that may not communicate as effectively as others. Any other questions?
Not yet. I'll keep checking the chat. So, but yeah, good point. I think patience sounds like key. I mean, we all need more patience. I think I need more patience. Yeah, good point.
All right, so I'll continue through the presentation. Maybe I'll hit on a few more points that some of you will find helpful, and if not, again, feel free to connect with them. I'm happy to discuss any of these points further and how I've applied them in the workplace. So let's just get into some specifics. Like for myself, like how do I actually apply teamwork and collaboration at work? So just to give you guys a little breakdown of what my day-to-day might look like, I'm on a team of project managers. We fall under the security engineering umbrella of our organization, and that security engineering department falls under our larger information security arm of the organization. Right. So my specific responsibility is to manage and oversee the execution of prioritized, large-scale, cross-departmental projects with a focus on information security. So each member on my team is assigned specific projects. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to work directly with each other to execute on those projects. So what does that actually look like? So again, I'm on a team, multiple project managers. However, each of us have our own dedicated projects, but I might work with a bunch of different members of different teams, right, to be able to execute on that project. And ultimately, my goal as a project manager, as you see there in green, is simply complete the project, whatever the project might be. So that might entail collaborating with business stakeholders, customers, senior middle management, etc. right? Pretty much anyone in the organization, and at some point, or sometimes, it could be external individuals as well. So how do I collaborate with others? So I might collaborate with individuals within the organization or outside of the organization to define acceptance criteria, right? Defining milestones and release plans. So if I'm working on a specific product, right, or developing a specific product with these engineering teams, right, we might discuss, well, what does our minimum viable product actually look like, right? What is that first initial release you want to do to be able to gather feedback quickly and iteratively? And then in terms of general timelines, we would also collaborate to define, well, what are those timelines looking like? Are we looking to get something out right away, or do we have some time to put together the best possible product that we can within the time that's given to us? Right. Some other examples, there are a bunch of collaborative tools out there for anyone that's interested in project management. Some examples of that are tools such as Jira, which is very prominent within the industry of project management. Confluence is another. There's some obviously video conferencing applications such as this one, Microsoft Teams, and the Google Suite of products. Microsoft Project is another one, the Microsoft Professional Suite, etc. So there are a bunch of collaborative tools out there, especially now with the nature that a lot of organizations are working with their employees from home. There's a need to have a general understanding for a bunch of these different tools. I can also collaborate with others leveraging specific processes. So I've mentioned for anyone that isn't aware, Agile is a methodology, and there are a bunch of frameworks as it relates to project management that fall under that methodology. So Scrum, Kanban are a couple of the more popular ones. And these frameworks are structured completely around teamwork and collaboration. Right? And some other examples on how I collaborate with others, it's maybe not necessarily specific to my core role, given that I'm a member of the Bloomberg Latinx community within the organization and its leadership team. My collaborative efforts might be focused surrounding diversity and inclusion within the organization. So I might work with our diversity and inclusion partners, other areas of the business, or external partnerships, or external organizations to establish partnerships, so on and so forth. So these are a couple of examples that I personally have in terms of how I would collaborate with others across the org, or work on a team, or as a member of a team, as it relates to teamwork.
Looks like there's another question, Steve,
Yep.
from a student. It's from Trey. Let's know if you're a certified project manager or project portfolio manager.
Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. What was the question?
The question is, are you a certified project manager or a project portfolio manager?
So there are a bunch of different certifications. I don't think those are industry-wide. I believe they might be talking about like PMP. Right? Is that right? So I'm a certified Scrum Master, an advanced certified Scrum Master, and a certified Scrum Product Owner. So the one reason why I say that is because a lot of different organizations that offer certifications, they might name it their own complete thing. So my certifications are issued through Scrum Alliance, and then the Project Management Institute offers a PMP certification, which is a lot more prominent in the project management space. So that's your more traditional project management certification, and it is still prevalent today. Does that answer the question? Or do they have a follow-up on that?
Did that answer the question? Yes,
Yep.
he said yes. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, so portfolio management, just for anyone that's interested, portfolio management and product ownership is very similar to an extent. So you might have a portfolio of different products, or you might have a specific product that you're responsible for from a product ownership standpoint. So I'm happy to speak to either if anyone has any follow-up questions on that later on. All right, so let's get into you now as students and your expectations as you prepare to enter the workforce upon graduation, right? So how can you build collaborative relationships at work? And I would suggest also factor this into what you do in Alfred. Before I get into this, I'll tell you guys a quick story. Coming out of Alfred, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something in business and finance, right? And the reason why I say that is because coming from Sant'Anna, I did an internship out in Italy when I was there and focused on marketing and management, right? And I knew management was something I enjoyed, just in general, participating in any type of leadership opportunity that I could. But coming out of school is different when you're entering the workforce. And for me, I thought I was going to get into accounting. I thought I was going to get into finance management, etc. And I tried to get my foot in there, and it just wasn't working out. It took me 6 months before I actually landed my job at Bloomberg, and I took a different role before that for a very short time with a small organization. But ultimately, it wasn't until I got to Bloomberg that I actually found what I truly enjoyed, and ultimately, it came down to project management. And as I started to reflect on what my path was to actually get there and understand what that actually was, like why do I actually enjoy project management? Everything that came back to me related to my project work and my group work that I did at Alfred. So just working on teams, being able to get people together, being able to get people's different viewpoints together on paper, as part of executing on an overall project. Those were the specific things that stuck with me and that I always kept coming back to. So there are specific people that I haven't personally thanked them just because some of us have lost touch afterwards, but just being able to work on those teams, I would thank them if I were to see them, just because it helped me to be prepared to be able to take on these project management roles and be able to work with people of different backgrounds and personalities and so on to be able to be effective at what I do. All right, so don't take for granted the experiences that you've had at Alfred, because it can definitely correspond and relate to what you're going to do in the workplace. So with that, I'll get into a little bit about furthermore to elaborate on that, how you can build collaborative relationships at work, but also consider this in your work at Alfred. So overall, understand the organization's values, missions, and/or vision. Right? This is very important because every company that you might consider in the future, they have specific, at least they should have specific missions and visions for their organization. Right. So for us, we have 4 values that we look to as a company. Right. So those 4 values are diversity, inclusion, innovation, philanthropy, and sustainability. We're huge when it comes to philanthropy. I mean, Mike Bloomberg donates, if not 90%, if not at least 90%, if not more, of his profits over towards his philanthropic efforts. And we have an entire organization that's dedicated to his philanthropy efforts. Sustainability is also a big piece. If anyone has not, I'm not sure if anyone here is an architecture student, but if you are, I'm sure you'll appreciate that our office in London is actually one of the most sustainable office spaces in all of Europe. I recommend you guys look into our headquarters in London. And then innovation and diversity and inclusion is right now just a prominent focus in all that we do. A couple of examples of that, for example, our employees are actually, I don't want to say graded, but our metrics are based on innovation, collaboration, knowing who our customers are and doing the right thing. So our metrics are actually aligned with our company's values, missions, and vision. Right? So just kind of goes to show just the importance in understanding what those values are for yourself as you prepare to go into the workforce. Also, practice effective communication. And when I say communication, listening is a big part of it. Right? So right now I'm talking to you all as part of a presentation, but communication, I would say more often than not, is all about listening. Are you actually listening to what the person in front of you is telling you, or whoever it is you're communicating to? Right? What are the issues or concerns they're raising? What is the constructive criticism they're providing? What are the positive details that they're offering you? Right? So practice effective communication in all that you do. Personal interactions can have a major impact on how successful you are collaborating with others. Develop your facilitation skills. This is actually a key one that I've learned in my current role. So kind of going to the point of like what were some of the things that, or like how do I deal with members of the team who may not communicate effectively, right? Going back to that question, facilitation skills are important to know and all that you do. It really does help to bring people together towards a common outcome. And an example of that, for example, is if you're working on a team, right, establish working agreements with each other. Like, what are some agreements that you're going to have just in terms of how you're going to work together in getting things done? An example of that could be as part of a team working agreement, when we're in a meeting place or having a team discussion, everyone puts their electronics away. No one can have a phone out. I don't want to sound, overly burdensome, but, in some cases that is effective because anytime that someone can get distracted, it'll take away from the conversation that everyone's trying to have in order to come to a common outcome, right? So establish team working agreements with the organization or with the teams that you work with. An important one also is asking for feedback. Constructive criticism leads to growth and building trust with your colleagues. This is uber important. I ask for feedback in all that I do every single day. You know, is there any way that I can improve? Is there anything that I could do better? What are the team saying? You know, is there something that they don't feel comfortable with speaking to me about for whatever reason that might be? Right. You want to make sure that you're receiving feedback as often as possible. Different organizations handle evaluations or end of year reviews, as you'll come to understand them, differently. We actually have our evaluations around January of every year, and all the employees go through the evaluation process from middle management to top level management all the way on down to individual contributors. So feedback is huge in all that we do as a company. Another piece is practice inclusivity in all that you do, right? So just going to the last bullet point that you see here, setting personal differences aside, you know, understand that when you enter the workforce, you as an individual may be working with people of different cultural backgrounds for the very first time ever. You may be encountering people of different backgrounds for the very first time ever, right? People of different races, religions, genders, lifestyles, viewpoints, etc. Right? So practice inclusivity in all that you do. You know, be accepting and willing to work with others that have different viewpoints than you, right? Because this is something that's just going to help you through all that you do in your career as you look ahead, right? Know your customers and what their needs are, right? Are your customers internal or external to the organization? Are they both, right? How can your team bring efficiency to their processes and workflows? Can we collaborate effectively with them, right? Know who your customers actually are and what you can do as an individual, as a team, as an organization to meet those needs, right? You never know, that might lead to new business opportunities for you. And develop your negotiation and conflict management skills. This also coincides with what I was talking about in terms of working with teams that may not communicate effectively, right? How can we compromise, right? How can we get to a middle ground where everybody, you know, gets a little bit of what they want, maybe not everything they want, but ultimately it's the best path that we could possibly take forward as a team, taking collaboration into account as well. Right? So these are all tips that I would suggest to everyone here in terms of how you can build your collaborative relationships at work, at school, at home, and in your everyday lives. Any questions before I continue? All right. We're just a couple slides away, so this is actually like the last real slide I have. So what does success actually look like as it relates to teamwork and collaboration? So for you, this might mean leadership and management opportunities, mentorships, personal growth and development. I mean, teamwork and collaboration, again, for us is actually a metric, right? So if I'm effective at what I do as it relates to teamwork and collaboration, I can speak for myself and say that I've actually had opportunities where I was offered mentorship opportunities, where I was actually offered a management opportunity. I led a team of 7 individuals across operations, and on the first team that I had started with, and you know that came within a year and a half of me actually joining the organization, which it's typically not something that someone coming for the first time into an entry level role typically moves into. Let's just put it that way, across any company, not just Bloomberg. So I was very fortunate and thankful that the stars aligned and that I was effective at what I did to be able to pull people together to actually be offered a management opportunity. And then what does it mean for the actual organization? So the organization has an improved ability to innovate and adapt to change, right? The more we can collaborate, the more we can get ahead of what the risks are, understand what our needs are, what our customer needs are, right? And again, going to what I was saying about developing new business opportunities, we can innovate and adapt to that change to offer new solutions to our customers if that's the need. We can also improve efficiencies in our work processes and technologies. We'll have a greater ability to recruit and retain talent just by being able to work together, like the day and age that we're in today, especially as a lot of employees are working remotely, right? We want to be able to still recruit and retain talent across our organization because turnover is very costly, believe it or not. And then also you're going to have, just because you can work together effectively and collaborate with others, you're naturally just going to have a higher morale throughout the organization. People are going to want to work together. They're going to want to work for the organization. They're going to want to be able to execute on what that mission and what the overall vision is for the organization. And ultimately, that's going to lead to the organizational success. Okay. So with that, I'll close, allow some time for Q&A. And here are just a few images of my time from left to right, from Alfred, all the way on to where I am today at Bloomberg. You'll see several of my Bloomberg Latinx community colleagues and leadership team members. on the right. And this was from last Hispanic Heritage Month when we visited NASDAQ to ring the closing bell. All right, so with that, I'll take questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't know, Maureen, if you have any specific questions for me.
Yeah, I was curious.
Mhm.
How did they, when you interviewed with Bloomberg, was it part of the interview process where they like assessing your ability to work with others, so to speak? Like reflecting back on the interview process, did you find that that was like a point of emphasis, so to speak?
Absolutely. I mean, a majority of my interview when I first joined the organization was related to my experiences in studying abroad, right? Like putting yourself in a completely unknown situation. How did you deal with that? But it's specifically for the role that I'm in today, collaboration and teamwork was a huge part of it. The reason being was because coming into the team that I'm with now, working with the engineering groups that I'm working with today, that engineering group was a very experienced team that was together for 10 plus years, right? And when you have a team where a majority of the team members have been with an organization, the same organization, for a very long time, right? Let's just put it this way: they're less receptive to change. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to collaborate with them, understand their viewpoints, and determine, that, or help them see and coach them to see that change is okay. Right? Too much change is also not a good thing, I would say, but change is okay, especially if it's going to benefit them in the long run. So ultimately, having that opportunity, the team had a chance to be able to focus more on their work, avoid more distractions, or as many distractions that they had in the past, right, and be able to actually execute on what they were being tasked with doing over time.
Here's a question in the chat. The question is, did you consider going for cybersecurity versus business administration?
So this kind of goes back to when I was talking about why it took me so long to get my associates at Alfred. So I had a roller coaster of an experience. Let's just put it that way. My first few years at Alfred, I came in for computer engineering. Uh, Actually, I'll take it a step back. I graduated high school with a certification to be a computer technician. That was in 2008. So I had my CompTIA plus certification. After that, I came into Alfred for computer engineering. So I thought that's what I wanted to do. Wasn't the case. I went into computer information systems. I did okay. I got exposed to a lot of different things. Cybersecurity was not as prominent as it is today back then, but it was something that was still being developed, so to say. So it wasn't until later in my career, like as I got into business and obviously as I'm at Bloomberg, that I got more and more exposed to the cybersecurity space. I think looking back, I would say I wouldn't have changed my trajectory in terms of how I got to where I am today, but the cybersecurity, like what I consider going for it, I mean, it's never too late, right? Like, I mean, I'm in the space now, and I have considered it. So I think there is still time if I wanted to pursue that opportunity that I could. I'm just not as overly interested with it, to be honest. I really enjoy doing what I do with project management. I'm really effective at and passionate about getting people together to work towards a common goal. Does anyone else have any questions? You can feel free to unmute. If you want to speak, you don't have to put it in the chat. All right. So it doesn't sound like there are any more questions.
You outside your office window.
What's that? Oh yeah, I live in Astoria, Queens. So that's my. I don't know if you guys can see that really well, but that's my New York City view. That's on my window. My work from home workspace.
Can we see that beautiful view one more time?
Now I heard someone speak.
There you go.
Sure. There you go. All right. Can you guys see that? Let me see if I can turn. There you go. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. In all seriousness, I would just close with, if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so. I sent Maureen the slides before the presentation. She can share that with you all. I do think that a lot of the tips and details for what I covered would be helpful for everyone, just having been working in the field now for a little bit. And if you have any questions in terms of like my career at Bloomberg or what I did in Alfred, feel free to reach out. I'm very approachable. If I don't answer you right away, believe me, eventually I will.
Thank you,
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Thank you very much, Maureen, for having me, and thank you everyone as well for participating.
All right. Have a great one.
Thank you. You as well. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.